Hello, this is The Harboring Light. I'm Mary. I give a conservative perspective about the world around me. So my social media links will be provided along with email, Substack, and buy me a coffee. If you enjoy my content, whether it be written or my podcast, you want to support, feel free to click on that link. And also to add on, I'm going to, in this episode, I'm going to add in the description of it, harboring notes. And I'm going to do that periodically as a working, quick tidbit of like a newsletter, but more of a quick tidbit about things that I'm thinking about doing in the future, and I would like to get feedback from that. So look out for that. So, audio platforms. I'm on Audible, Amazon Music, Spotify for podcasters, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Pandora, iHeartRadio. And I am looking to grow to where you enjoy your podcast. I'm definitely on that. So this episode is all about Odetta and her music. So let's dive in. All right, so I'm breaking down Odetta's album, My Eyes Have Seen. So, Poor Little Jesus. It was a powerful Negro Christmas spiritual. Poor Little Jesus draws its strength from the contrast between its eluding melody and its lamenting text. It is far removed from the traditional sweet carol as Plantation is from the meadows of the English countryside. Odetta, ironically, as a modern reference, which is deeply moving and is underlying of the seemingly endless tide of suffering. Okay, so before I get into the rest of the parts of this breakdown of this album, I want to say these thoughts. So, I think it's really interesting how, for instance, in these songs, the overall running theme that I'm saying and that I will present as I go along in this album is the plight of particularly African Americans. And I think that in this particular case, it's really genuine in what she's doing, what she did in this album. And what she's doing as a sense that her voice still lives on even though she's no longer with us on earth. So, what am I saying about this? So, as we see today with people particularly pushing the race card or the race notion that there's racism and everything, and then that particularly black people have never been free or never been more oppressed than they are today is ridiculous. Going along the notions of all the strives that blacks have achieved and are still achieving, if say you want to seize that opportunity. And it's also pins to the point of when you're in a culture that is affluent and that has everything, and that's not that that there is suffering still, of course, obviously, but not apparent suffering. There's a way to get out of your situation. And what does it say about are you making a circumstance that isn't there? So with Odetta, with her music, she was at a real pivotal point in history to where blacks really didn't, they were truly suffering, and they didn't have so much of a say. And she was I think she opened the door and the opportunity to say, well, these are means in which are related and are more associated more so along the lines with the ideas and the I guess the concepts of African American culture in that pivotal time. And she wanted to shed a light of the suffering behind that and to uplift and give a voice to this and to get people to think about things and to see things on another level. I think this relates to Stevie Wonder and Sly Stone. So let me start out with Stevie Wonder. So Stevie Wonder, I have watched a really interesting documentary about particularly Stevie Wonder was included because this was talking about Motown. So when he was under the Motown label, he's pretty restricted in the sort of, I guess you can say, artistic liberties with the particular music or genre you want to associate yourself with. And I'm sorry, I'm thinking about Odetta, and then I'm talking about Stevie Wonder. Forgive me for that. So Stevie Wonder, what he wanted to particularly do when he found the opportunity and he had the leverage to break out on his own, he did. And then when he did that, he started to experiment more and to get more soulful with what he is feeling and thinking about the world around him. And so we saw all of these, and we hear all of these different songs that came out of that. Very superstitious, and the list goes on. And he's becoming more soulful, more impactful in the soul, and connecting with his audience. And not least to say, when he was under Motown, it was more pop and happy-go-lucky. But the contradiction of that, not contradiction, the change went to more realistic, more not downbeat, but more happy downbeat, but more a realistic perspective about humanity and things of that nature. So Sly Stone, his artistry and his music, it centers around making honest observations about people. So, for instance, everyday people, it begs the unified question that even though we come people come from different backgrounds, we're not all the same, but in that differences, we can unite and come together and understand one another. And I think he's saying that makes us better, because if we were all the same, then, what's the fun in that? I think he's saying that it's more impactful to relate to someone even though they're different from you. All right, so let's get into the rest of these songs. Okay, bald-headed woman. In this Negro prison song, a boasting air becomes both a comic mask to clothe the tragedies of prison life and assertion of defiant strength. Songs of this kind create under conditions whereby they must be carried by the human voice alone, attain a stark classic line, and it's thus that Odetta sings it unaccompanied, with the silence as potent as the sung phrase, and with punctuation provided by her own hand claps. Motherless Children. The song is a variation of the better-known spiritual This Train. For the listener, Odetta's version is a deep one, since it juxtaposes the jubilation of the gospel train with the tragedies of life. I know where I'm going. A tender and beautiful love song which has become a favorite in the repertoires of ballad singers on both sides of the Atlantic. The Foggy Dew, an old Irish ballad that has been collected in various forms. This haunting version celebrates the Easter Rebellion against the British rule in 1916, which ended in defeat of the citizen army of the long-range guns of the British troops. The extraordinary accompaniment with its mood of foreboding at the opening and of the mournful defiance at its close. It's a tour de force by Odetta's guitar and the bass of Bill Lee, her accompanist. I've been driving on Bald Mountain and Waterboy. Odetta's length of these work songs result in a sum greater than the parts. Here is a rhapsody on Negro labor, which overwhelms the listeners by its alterations of moods and the richness of its characterization. Opening with the depiction of the proud John Henry like steel driver, Odetta introduced his buddy who got him high learning on the Big Bend Tunnel. And John Henry is unfortunate. The tale of John Henry, he was a still driving workman, as the legend goes, and from what I understand, he was imprisoned. It's based on a real person who was a prisoner, and he could never escape the fate of him, of his work life as a prisoner. And it's unfortunate, all the legends of how it's unfortunate that of what the actual events of what happened is how it is said to be with this legend, but it's just that it's unfortunate that it's based on that harsh reality. But it's interesting that how the legend goes of the strength and tenacity to keep going. All right, so, and it shows the mutual respect of these masters of the sledge and spike. The tempo accelerates to a climax at which the mood of freedom suddenly breaks, and we find the worker on the chain gang calling for the water boy. A mood of bitterness and anguish pervades the first verse, where the dull repeating of rock breaking is reflected in the harshness of the voice. Then the prisoner's memory awakes, and a rich sense of the loss of freedom is unleashed in the Jack of Diamonds verse. Memory is erased, and the tempo of labor, which engulfs both singer and audience, in a dramatic close. So, on side 2, Ox Driver Song. This is a song of the American West frontier of the prisoners' immigration by covered wagon or prairie chose west from the Mississippi. The drive through mud and overstep hills required a granite-like fortitude, and it is this quality which Odetta's performance captures with its unstoppable momentum and the cumulative intensity. Down on Me. Odetta first heard this song in the Library of Congress recording by Vera Hall as a collection by Alan Lomax. The lyrics, which the outcry looks like everybody in the world is down on me, are secular. But the influence of the spiritual is not hard to perceive. A rich body of folk song created by wandering singers embodies such a bridge between the spiritual and the blues. So, Sarah Jane. This is a song of a Negro roaster, a stevedore who served as a U.S. gunboat that harassed the Confederate supply lines during the Civil War. It was collected by Dave Macon in 1887 from Negro singers in Nashville, Tennessee, and it is considered the first example of the songs which arose in the great rivers of the central United States. It fills with good humor. Its finest irony is its claim that these particular songs have nothing to do but sit down and sing. 3 Pigs. With the inflection that Odetta gives to this children's song, it becomes a fable for grown-ups. Jumpin' Judy. This is a Negro prison song which expresses quite different emotions. No More Cain speaks openly and literally of suffering and degradation, expressing personal sorrow and mood of this. It is poetically the more profound lyric, especially in its irony opening statement, Jumpin' Judy, which shares some verse in common with Led Belly's Midnight Special. It's a comic fantasy in which these elements effectively mask the sort of what it leads to undertoning more along the lines, the right phrasing of bitter sarcasm. Instead of saying sort of this, pinpointing to bitter sarcasm. Okay, and let's end with, I'm ending with Battle Hymn of the Republic. The melody is of folk origin, despite authorship claims of several 19th century composers. The words are by Julia Ward Howe, who wrote them in December 1861 after hearing Union soldiers singing John Brown's Body. As they went to battle near Washington, D.C., the battle hymn was first published in the Atlantic Monthly of February 1862 and became the anthem of the Union forces. Upon listening to this album, it shows that, in my conclusion, if you listen to this album, it shows the very in-depth analysis about the human condition. And I will link this source, of course, on Substack. Alright, so this reaches the end of the Harboring Light. And as I was saying about the Harboring Notes, I will add that in this episode. And feedback will be greatly important. So you can reach me through email. You can reach me through Substack and X, which I check periodically. But email and Substack is great. All right. And let me give you the clue for the next artist for Monday. Mary and the Road to Damascus. Now let that sink in. All right. Tune in, turn up, and, of course, take care. Bye-bye now.